So I'm a serial entrepreneur, created a bunch of startups, sold some failed. And I got into a blockchain, as a regular cryptocurrency enthusiast, probably 3 or 4 years ago. And back then I did extensive analysis of Bitcoin. I actually looked at the transactions on the blockchain. Because I have applied mathematics background, I actually did some statistics on this, read some scholarly paper, decided it's a total scam, and didn't buy any, which obviously I now regret. But I guess my skepticism paid off, because the problem with these things is with any kind of bubble, right? If you get in and you start making money and things go well, you don't really know when to get out. And because of that, usually you would get carried away, as 90% of people who get blown up in various bubbles, you will probably also go with it. So who knows, maybe it was for the best. So what I'm going to try to informally chat about is the transformational effect of blockchain on various industries. And I'm not really going to stick to the slides specifically, and I probably want to have at least half of the discussion as kind of a Q&A session and an open debate. But everybody have heard about blockchain. Obviously, you guys are here. It's been a big deal. People are apparently making a lot of money in this. And what I find interesting is that conceptually, not a lot of people understand what blockchain is. And even those people who understand, they typically focus on all of the positive externalities of the blockchain, such as ICOs, money raising, cryptocurrency trading, and all of those things that don't really make that technology special, because what matters about the blockchain is an execution, is that seed of a conceptual seed that is actually very useful for very few things, but for those things that it is useful, it's transformational, and I want to focus on that. So as everybody knows, blockchain is nothing but a distributed ledger. It's just like a DNS entry on the internet, that context which looks up and translates the internet address. And then anybody can keep that glorified ledger, glorified piece of information, and it could be shared between many people. So it is not anything else, right? You cannot store data on the blockchain. You cannot do any programming on the blockchain. You cannot do a lot of other things that people ascribe to the blockchain, right? It's just a storage context, and then the nodes execute certain programs against it, right? So then the question is, like if you look at objectively all the places where blockchain can be effectively applied, 90% of the places where people think and stick it into it actually not useful. It doesn't add any value. But let's critically analyze the places where blockchain can effectively have value. And this is where all of this distributed ledger goodness is required, where all the transactions are required, and they can be stored by external parties that don't trust each other. And then you can also have a global transactable market. So first of all, it's finance. It's the ability to replace the banking and money transfers and agreements and contracts and whatnot. So that's clearly is useful, and this is going to happen. So I truly believe that maybe within 5 years, most of the financial transactions are going to be recorded in some kind of blockchain context that is going to be run globally, and probably big banks are going to adopt it, and some of them, despite early criticism, like JP Morgan guy, who first ridiculed blockchain and saw that Bitcoin and everything was a bubble, his opinion changed, and I guess they're starting their own blockchain project. So more of a utilitarian attitude. And if you take banking and finance industry, definitely a blockchain, that distributed ledger, has a lot of utility there. Because now you can share the information between multiple parties. It's anonymous, it's immutable, and you don't have to keep that critical data in one specific place. It could be a distributed marketplace. So I actually use it in one of my projects that I'm a chairman of. It's called Neuromation, and what it does, it uses minor machines for AI calculations. And now, the magic of the blockchain there is that because of these transactions, because of the distributed nature of this global marketplace, we can actually hire a mining farm in China to do, let's say, neural network tenancy and pay them in our token or in Ether, but without ever seeing the guys, right? There's no yuan or dollars that crosses the borders. There's no contract driven. It's just a smart contract. It's a piece of programming that has been done on the blockchain and completed. So yeah, blockchain will transform banking and financial transactions for sure, because this is what they already use, these ledgers, right? Since they were invented in Antwerp in 1200s, and they transformed the commerce as an accounting method. They've been around and they're very useful. If you're going to look at everything else, for example, content management, right? Unless you need to record something in a specific database, and then there is explicit reason to have a blockchain and to keep the data elsewhere, to keep the data on outside machines, content management I don't think is really going to be useful in a blockchain context. Maybe you can put index on the blockchain, right? But you can't store anything on blockchain. So content management for the blockchain doesn't have specific reason to exist. Now, if you look at legal, I think there is a possibility that something might happen, and that's because of the smart contracts, right? Smart contracts can be executed between the parties anonymously. These are just pieces of software that run on the nodes of the blockchain executing machines, and then stored in the blockchain, and then you can basically have an anonymous contract that anybody can check, and it's fair and it's unforgeable. So there we might have some interesting applications. Obviously, in payments, that has to do with market, identity, reputation, not so much, and then and then obviously kind of blockchain application things in itself. Let's go forward. Yeah, so. There is a huge uptick in initial coin offerings. If you look at the coin market cap, there are 1,600 of these coins. And a lot of Ether, a lot of Bitcoin was spent on these ICOs. And I have actually, in one capacity, completed one very successful token sale for a business called Neuromation. We are in the process of running another token sale for our project called Engagement Token. And it's a fantastic way to raise money outside of traditional venture and banking environments. But I hope that at least my projects that we're doing these ICO token sales, they do really benefit from the blockchain, because the blockchain is that central capacity that enables my businesses. But if you look at 90% maybe of the ICOs that are happening, that have happened and are happening right now, and again, you can go to CoinMarketCap and just go line by line, you would see that a lot of these. Huh? If you could face that way for the camera, it's actually easier if you're. Oh, okay, right. Yeah, if you look at a lot of these projects, they really don't need a blockchain. So the blockchain for them is a gimmick, just a money-raising gimmick, and if you read into the white paper, then it's going to become blatantly apparent. A lot of these projects don't even need their own tokens. They can just use Ether or Bitcoin in its pure form to transact. So with that, my expectation is that probably middle of this year, or maybe closer to the end of this year, 90% of these currencies are going to crash globally against Ether and Bitcoin. So there's going to be a global crash of these spurious coins, and that's actually going to kill a lot of hype on the market, and I think it was going to severely depress the ICO money raises. So, and it's a pity because it's also going to impact negatively all those projects that do need zero token, that do need a blockchain, right? And specifically, let's say that you have something that really requires your own token and raise on the market. It will probably tank along with everything else. Okay, we can skip that slide. Yeah. Okay, yeah, well, I don't think I need this presentation anymore. So, yeah, so, and I actually did this exercise before doing my engagement token sale, and even the previous one. I actually went by hand and over this span of several days analyzed 500 ICOs that ever happened or are in the process of happening. And I read, dozens and dozens of hours worth of white papers, from just cursory glances to very deep analysis. And it quickly became apparent that, like, the whole capitalization of that token market is by far outstrips its capacity to deliver. So many of those projects are just, the blue moon kind of blue sky ideas that some of them, albeit very well presented on paper, but are almost impossible to execute in real life. And when you just a contributor or investor with an Ether who doesn't really have the critical capacity to analyze the technology or business, it's very easy for you to bite on that, bite in the hype, go invest into the project, and ultimately lose most of your money. So I know it kind of, all of this went around, and let's just do some questions and see if, we can generate maybe some back and forth.
We have time for 2 questions. Does anyone have a question? Okay. Just have time for 2 questions today.
So I'm looking at this from a technology point of view, and let's say what happened, what you described, will happen. I may agree with you, but from a technology point of view, there is real value in the blockchain that goes beyond the hype and beyond the next few months that will have implications for the long term. Can you?
No, absolutely. And I mean, as I said, right, the blockchain is very useful technology, but it's very useful in very specific domains, right? If you go and take an arbitrary business concept and say, hey, look, I'm selling balloons. Now I'm going to put balloons on the blockchain. There is balloons, there is blockchain, right? And if there's no explicit need for a distributed immutable ledger that is a core part of that business, then it's an appendage. And that combination is not going to work really well, either financially or technologically.
Okay, very good. One last question.
How do you feel that blockchain aligns with the healthcare industry? Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, here is that's the whole point. Healthcare industry is huge, right? And the only place where I can see blockchain having meaningful impact is in data aspect of it, right? Data storage, data analysis, and transactions done on that data. And the problem being, right, when you start going into nitty-gritty details, and let's say, look, we have troves of patient data. Why don't we put them on the blockchain? And then, logically you ask, well, why do we need to put them on a blockchain? Is it completely necessary for them to sit in as a distributed databases? Is there a case where nobody trusts each other and you're afraid that the transaction is going to get jeopardized? So you need to reflect it in multiple nodes. Or this is just, because, there is, I guess, a coolness factor to that. Because if you think about it, if you trust your hospital's database, or you trust where the data is supposed to sit, and you trust your encryption algorithm, there's no good reason to put any of that on the blockchain.
Insurance. That's what we don't trust. The healthcare industry.
Well, maybe, but we perfectly well trust a lot of other secure servers. You trust your bank, and the question is, you keep your money there and you're perfectly happy to do it in Chase or Wells Fargo and whatnot. However, what you're not perfectly happy to do, right, is trust counterparty, let's say in China, with whom you have to trade. And there you need anonymity, there you need security, there you need immutability, right? So the question is, it might be, for some paranoid reason, it might be better, let's say even for insurance data to sit on the blockchain. But, if you do business analysis then, and that paranoid use case is only 0.01% of all the things that can go wrong with the business, then you don't really need blockchain to defend that. But let's say if I need a global marketplace, I need to transact with multiple counterparties around the world, hundreds of times per day or hundreds of times per second, and I don't trust them, I don't know them, then it's another story. Then I need smart contracts, then I need blockchains, and I need immutable ledger, right? So it's just, all of these domains need to go through very critical analysis before blockchain can be applied.
Okay, thank you. Let's
Thank
give
you.
Constantine a big round of applause.